Well, there was a small bookstore in Cambridge called the Red Bookstore, when it was okay to use the word red, when we still thought something good was going on in Russia. Anyway, and what would happen was it was a nonprofit co-op bookstore that sold stuff that you couldn't get anyplace else. Because in my youth, you couldn't buy a book by Malcolm X or any of the Baldwin or any of that stuff. That was considered, really way out, or even feminist literature. So the Red Bookstore sold radical literature, which now looks kind of calm, actually. And what would happen was, sometimes they would get a book from a prisoner they would get a letter asking for a book. Well, they were running on a deficit to begin with, so they couldn't send out free books. So what they did was they put a big carton out in the hallway and said, brothers and sisters, when you're finished with a book, throw it in so we can send it to our brothers and sisters in prison. And what happened was, as you know, in prison, word gets around. Somebody sees somebody reading a book, somebody says, where'd you get it? And we never advertise. God knows if we advertise, it'd really be in trouble. So what happened was eventually some of the volunteers from the Red Book Collective got so many letters that they said, let's just form our own group and just send books to prisoners. So they stayed in Cambridge in the basement of the Red Bookstore, and then when the Red Bookstore moved to Jamaica Plain, they moved, and then eventually the Red Bookstore moved someplace else, and we ended up in Jamaica Plain, which is where I came in. The volunteers started coming, very many. Anyone with Boston Cares? Well, we got a lot of volunteers. That was the best contact we made, was Boston Cares. And also Fidelity. We got a lot of their employees. And little by little by little, we moved from Jamaica Plain into Arlington Street into a Unitarian building. And the Unitarians were incredibly hospitable to us. We had a beautiful space on Arlington Street and very much support from the Unitarians. And we stayed there until they sold the building. And then we moved here, which I have heard is an even better, one wonderful spot. All the stuff that makes a volunteer group work. And I have to tell you, I think we are one of the few groups I have ever encountered that is totally and completely volunteer. So when anybody gives money to Prison Book, you don't have to worry about the administrator who's flying first class someplace or who's buying lunch on your money. Every penny that gets donated goes for postage primarily. That's our single biggest expense. I think this is probably the model prison book program in the country. There are many other ones, but we're older. I think we were the first, and we probably send out more books than almost any prison book program in the country. So, welcome. I invite you all to follow in my footsteps.